On May 12, 2023, at 2:15 p.m., 30-year-old Katie Payne entered the women's restroom in Terminal 3 at Chicago O'Hare International Airport. Security cameras clearly captured her stepping through the door, but none of the dozens of recordings ever showed her leaving. The woman vanished without a trace into the windowless room amid a crowd of 1,000 people. Exactly 6 months later, on November 12th at 2:30 a.m., 4,000 miles from Chicago, customs officials at Frankfurt Airport in Germany broke the seal on a ventilated metal container for biological cargo. What they saw inside compelled them to immediately call in an armed police unit. At the bottom of the crate lay the missing Katie. She was alive, but her body was tightly restrained by a professional medical restraint shirt, and her eyes were covered with a thick black blindfold. How could an ordinary passenger have crossed the ocean as a piece of cargo? And what horrors had she endured in that dark box for half a year? On May 12, 2023, O'Hare International Airport in Chicago was bustling. It is one of the largest and most secure transit hubs in the United States, where hundreds of thousands of passengers pass through daily, and the premises are patrolled by hundreds of security officers. Terminal 3, which handles domestic and international flights, pulsed with its usual rhythm. Surveillance cameras, installed every few dozen feet, recorded every movement. It was in this seemingly completely safe environment that an incident occurred that forced the police to admit their helplessness. 30-year-old Katie Payne, an auditor at a major financial firm, was waiting for a connecting flight with her colleague and friend Emily. According to Emily's interview transcript, the women arrived at the Terminal 3 waiting area at 1:45 p.m. They took seats near Gate 21. At 2:15 p.m., Katie left her carry-on bag on a chair next to her friend. According to Emily, Katie said only one thing: that she needed to go to the women's restroom for 5 minutes, since boarding was scheduled to begin at 2:50 p.m. She was wearing a light-colored raincoat, dark jeans, and white sneakers. Those were the last words anyone heard from her, and the last time she was seen alive. At 2:25 p.m., Emily began to get worried. At 2:40 p.m., when boarding had already been announced, her panic reached its peak. Her friend approached the airline representatives at the check-in counter, and they, following protocol, immediately called airport security. At 2:55 p.m., the first Chicago police officers arrived on the scene. Given the strict security protocols in transit areas, they launched a large-scale search operation, which involved partially cordoning off the north wing of Terminal 3. Detective Mark Harris, who led the initial phase of the investigation, immediately ordered the retrieval of all CCTV footage within a half-mile radius of the scene of the disappearance. The footage clearly captured every step the woman took toward the door. At the timestamp from camera number 4, which was pointed directly at the hallway in front of the restroom, it is clearly visible that at 2:16 p.m., Katie Payne opened the door and walked inside. After that, Detective Harris and the technicians reviewed the footage from all 4 cameras monitoring the exit and adjacent hallways, from 2:16 p.m. until the police arrived. Katie did not appear in any of the footage. She did not leave the room. The restroom had no windows, no ventilation grates of sufficient size, and no fire exits leading outside. The situation looked like an impossible locked room mystery. At 4:30 p.m., K-9 units were brought in to assist with the search. Officer Thomas, accompanied by a German Shepherd search dog, began his work at the restroom stall. The dog immediately picked up the missing woman's scent. The route taken by the K-9 handler, as documented in the police report, led from the 3rd stall to an inconspicuous service door with a magnetic lock that opened onto the utility corridors. This door was intended exclusively for airport staff. The trail led confidently through narrow, dimly lit tunnels that descended to the lower level, toward the underground baggage loading area. Investigators combed through the baggage carousels, back rooms, and sorting areas covering several square miles. However, near the heavy metal gates of cargo dock number 7, the dog unexpectedly lost the scent. It ended on the concrete where the trucks were parked. At the same time, detectives questioned all employees who were on duty. All cleaning staff and technical personnel were checked. While reviewing the electronic access logs, Detective Harris discovered a critical anomaly. The system recorded that unscheduled repair work on the ventilation system was being carried out in the women's restroom of Terminal 3 from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. The contractor listed was Viridian Logistics Warehouse. Investigators immediately checked the airport's contractor registry. The results of their inquiry shocked the task force. A company with that name did not legally exist, and the electronic application had been forged using stolen access codes. When the forensic team returned to the restroom for a thorough inspection, they noticed a chilling detail. In the third stall, there was a persistent odor, not of a standard chlorine-based cleaning agent, but of a potent medical antiseptic. The search had reached a dead end, and the only trail of the missing American woman led straight to the open gates of the cargo dock, beyond which lay an endless network of high-speed highways. Exactly 6 months later, on November 12, 2023, the timeline of this unprecedented case unexpectedly shifted across the Atlantic Ocean. Frankfurt am Main International Airport, one of Europe's largest cargo hubs, was shrouded in a cold autumn night. According to weather reports, the air temperature had dropped to 40 degrees Fahrenheit. A thick fog hung over the concrete of the runways, and a light drizzle was falling. At 2:30 a.m., Senior Customs Inspector Klaus Weber and his partner were conducting a routine inspection of detained transit containers in the massive Hangar Number 4. Their attention was drawn to a massive Bio-Cargo class metal container, about 7 feet long, labeled as highly sensitive medical equipment requiring constant ventilation and strict temperature control. According to the cargo manifests, which were later added to the investigation files, container number 814 had arrived in Germany via an extremely complex route. It had traveled over 8,000 miles through several shadowy logistics hubs in South America and Eastern Europe before boarding a flight to Frankfurt. The accompanying documents listed a little-known pharmaceutical company as the recipient, and the declared gross weight was 450 pounds. The box had an autonomous power supply, and charge indicators flashed rhythmically on its smooth walls. Inspector Weber, as he later noted in his testimony to the federal police, felt a professional sense of suspicion due to the excessive complexity of the route for ordinary commercial medical cargo. At 2:40 a.m., customs officers ran the object through a stationary, high-resolution thermal scanner. The image on the monitor prompted the inspector to immediately declare an alert. Instead of the clear outlines of metal parts or tanks, the scanner revealed an unusual thermal signature inside the shipment. It had a shape that eerily resembled a curled-up human body, with a temperature of approximately 96 degrees Fahrenheit. In accordance with security protocol, Weber decided to forcibly open the cargo. Armed with heavy hydraulic tools, the customs officers methodically broke 5 heavy-duty titanium seals. At 2:47 a.m., the massive metal doors swung open. A sharp, concentrated odor of medications, chlorine-based antiseptic, and stale air instantly hit the officers' noses. Inside the container, there were no test tubes, monitors, or microscopes. On the floor, which was completely lined with a thick layer of soft, black soundproofing material, lay a living person. It was a woman, exhausted to the extreme. Her skin had an unhealthy grayish tint, and her breathing was so shallow and infrequent that it indicated a state of deep, medically induced coma. In his official report, The inspector described in detail the chilling scene of the victim's immobilization. The woman was dressed in a heavy-duty medical restraint shirt made of thick, off-white canvas. Her arms were tightly secured across her chest by a system of intricate leather straps, tightened to maximum tension and fastened with small magnetic locks. Her legs were tightly bound with wide restraints, which were attached via carabiners to metal rings embedded in the container's floor. This ensured that any movement was absolutely impossible, and that the cargo remained completely subdued during transport. A thick, light-proof blindfold was secured over the woman's eyes. A medical catheter had been meticulously inserted into a vein in her left forearm through a specially cut opening in the fabric of the restraint shirt. It was connected by a plastic tube to an automatic infusion pump attached to the side of the crate. The pump hummed quietly, delivering a measured dose of a clear liquid from a hidden reservoir into her bloodstream every 5 minutes. Customs officers immediately called for emergency medical assistance and a federal police unit. Until the doctors arrived, no one dared to touch the intricate network of tubes for fear of killing the victim with a single wrong move. At 3:15 a.m., the paramedics carefully disconnected the pump, cut the restraints with special scissors, and transferred the motionless woman to a stretcher. Inside the ambulance, federal agents began the emergency identification procedure. Using a portable biometric scanner, they took fingerprints from her limp, exhausted fingers. At 3:20 a.m., the digital data was uploaded to Interpol's international database. At 3:40 a.m., the algorithms completed the search, and the system returned a 100% match. The identification result was met with a stunned silence among the officers present. It was Katie Payne, the American auditor who had vanished without a trace exactly half a year ago in a restroom at the Chicago airport, had just been found packed like an ordinary package inside a metal box. But the joy of the discovery was short-lived. When the senior paramedic tried to take fluid samples from the IV system, the portable chemical analyzer displayed a critical error, indicating the presence of an unknown, complex neurotoxic compound in the solution. And the vital signs monitor suddenly began to beep frantically, recording a rapid drop in the patient's heart rate. Dear viewers, before we continue to unravel this unprecedented case, I ask you to subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and click like. YouTube's algorithms are designed so that your engagement helps promote the video, meaning many more people will be able to see this chilling story. Your support allows us to produce new, in-depth investigations. And now, let's return to the cold walls of the Frankfurt clinic, where doctors were fighting to save the life of the woman they had found. At 5 a.m. on November 12, 2023, an ambulance, escorted by a heavy federal police convoy, delivered the exhausted patient to the clinic at Goethe University in Frankfurt. The hospital building, and especially the entire isolated ward on the 3rd floor, was immediately placed under round-the-clock guard by armed special-purpose police units. Access to the intensive care unit was restricted to all staff except for an authorized team of 5 intensive care specialists and 2 leading toxicologists. The initial medical tests, the results of which later appeared in the criminal case file, revealed a horrific clinical picture. The patient's blood was saturated with an extremely complex cocktail of long-acting tranquilizers, powerful muscle relaxants, and synthetic antipsychotics. In his official report, the chief physician noted that the dosages of the drugs had been calculated with frightening mathematical precision. The chemicals were administered frequently enough to keep the body in a state of deep, drug-induced sleep for many months, yet in a balanced enough manner to avoid stopping the heart or causing irreversible brain damage. Over the next few days, European investigators went down a completely wrong path. Given the presence of a heavy canvas straitjacket, and the patient's delirium when she briefly emerged from the effects of the tranquilizers, the police assumed that the woman was suffering from a severe mental disorder. In a semi-conscious state, she was unable to state her name or place of birth. Fragments of her delirium, recorded on tape by the nurse on duty, consisted only of disjointed, panicked phrases. The woman constantly muttered about absolute darkness, the endless, muffled hum of turbines, the incessant vibration of cold metal, and faceless people in sterile white masks leaning over her. Based on this fragmentary information, German detectives hypothesized that the patient had somehow escaped or been taken from an underground European psychiatric clinic, and that an attempt had then been made to secretly transport her to another country. The straitjacket itself was regarded by investigators as direct physical evidence of the classic restraint of a violent patient. However, this illusion of insanity was completely shattered on November 20th, when a special agent from the Federal Bureau of Investigation in the United States arrived in Frankfurt on a commercial flight. The agent immediately proceeded to the secured basement of the investigative department, where the physical evidence was stored. After gaining access to the sealed plastic bags, he began a meticulous examination of the items. It was the straitjacket that caught his professional attention. In his official report, the American investigator noted that the local police had failed to pay proper attention to the specific manufacturer's markings, printed in black ink on the garment's inner seam. This was by no means a standard hospital uniform of the kind found in an ordinary clinic. According to a federal database the agent consulted that same evening, the numbers and letters on the tag indicated highly specialized equipment of the highest security class. Such shirts were custom-made and used only by private medical contractors during the air transport of particularly dangerous prisoners or the extradition of violent criminals. The shirt had reinforced steel rings and additional fasteners to securely restrain the body to the transport stretcher in the event of severe turbulence. The agent reached an unequivocal conclusion. The restraint shirt had been used not at all because of the victim's mythical insanity. It was a cold, cruel, and purely technical instrument of perfect physical restraint. It was put on Katie for one purpose only: to fully ensure that during the long transcontinental transport in a ventilated metal box, the living cargo would be unable to move. The straitjacket ensured that the victim would not make any unnecessary noise in the hangars, would not damage the life support system or the automatic IV drips, and, most importantly, would not attract attention on customs thermal scanners with sudden convulsions or attempts to break free. It was a flawless portable prison made of sturdy fabric and leather straps, designed to turn a living human being into a convenient commodity. The investigation definitively ruled out the theory of an underground hospital, acknowledging that it was dealing with a ruthless transnational criminal organization. Sitting in his office, the agent entered the 11-digit serial number embroidered on the restraint shirt into a restricted government database. The monitor screen flickered for 20 seconds as it analyzed thousands of financial transactions. When the system finally revealed the name of the client company that had legally purchased this batch of specialized equipment a few weeks before the kidnapping, the agent felt a chill run down his spine. That very name had already appeared in the Chicago airport's security reports on the day Katie disappeared. On November 21st, 2023, at 9 a.m., a joint analytical team from the Federal Bureau of Investigation and Interpol began an unprecedented operation at its headquarters. After successfully identifying the company that had legally purchased a shipment of straitjackets, the investigation focused entirely on the return route of container number 814. The main task was to untangle an extremely complex logistical web, moving step by step from the cargo terminal in Germany back to the United States of America. According to financial intelligence reports, the container was officially registered to a front company in Europe through a convoluted chain of 5 international shell companies. Each of these entities existed solely on paper, with registered addresses at post office boxes in the Caribbean and Cyprus, making it impossible to quickly identify the actual owners. After analyzing thousands of pages of customs declarations and waybills, federal agents finally found a starting point. The forged documents led investigators to a specific vehicle. Digital archives from O'Hare Airport's security service revealed that on May 12, 2023, the very day of Katie Payne's disappearance, at 3 p.m., a heavy-duty truck with no identifying marks or logos on its sides drove unimpeded out of the underground loading area of Terminal 3. The vehicle passed through the checkpoint using a skillfully forged maintenance service pass. Footage from speed cameras and automatic license plate recognition systems on Interstate 90 allowed investigators to trace the vehicle's subsequent route. The truck traveled exactly 42 miles northwest of Chicago. At 4:20 p.m., it turned off the main highway and entered the restricted area of a private sorting facility, which was listed in the land registry as Black Hawk Freight Facility. Armed with the exact route and confirmed timestamps, the detectives were finally able to reconstruct the second-by-second timeline of the kidnapping inside the airport itself. According to the official forensic report, the criminals operated with the flawless, cold precision of a chronometer. It all began with a fake online request that allowed two men dressed as janitors to enter the women's restroom at 1:30 p.m. Under the guise of unscheduled maintenance, they blocked the main ventilation shaft, creating a reliable acoustic and visual barrier for other visitors. A computer reconstruction of the events showed that when Katie Payne entered the stall at 2:16 p.m., the trap was already set. The men acted instantly. The assailants injected a powerful sedative, prepared in advance, into her neck. A toxicological analysis later confirmed that this specific medical chemical took effect in less than 5 seconds, completely and irreversibly paralyzing the victim's central nervous system. Next, the criminals carried out the most daring part of their plan right in front of a crowd of thousands. The woman was unable to scream or offer any physical resistance. Completely immobilized, Katie was quickly placed in a medical wheelchair that had been hidden in advance in a storage room next to the restroom. According to the written testimony of one of the airport's technical staff members, who had been questioned earlier, he saw two paramedics wheel the passenger down the hallway. They had put large, dark sunglasses and a standard medical mask on her, and draped a warm woolen blanket over her shoulders. This created the perfect illusion of a sudden onset of a serious illness in an ordinary traveler, which aroused no suspicion among passers-by or security guards. At 2:22 p.m., having bypassed the main passenger areas, the kidnappers used a service freight elevator. Access to it was restricted exclusively to technical staff with special magnetic cards granting the highest level of access. In a matter of minutes, Katie was lowered into a blind spot in the basement, where no surveillance cameras were operational. In the dim light of the concrete underground dock, amid the constant hum of industrial generators, the living woman was packed into that same ventilated metal box, number 814. An engineering analysis of the container revealed professionally installed compact medical oxygen cylinders, a portable air filtration system, and an electronic unit for automatic water supply. She was securely restrained in a straitjacket, hooked up to an IV, and the heavy steel door was firmly locked shut. Just 1 hour after Katie disappeared from her friend's sight in the waiting room, she was traveling down a high-speed highway in the dark cargo hold of a truck, having become just another unit in the transnational flow of cargo. This grim reconstruction of events became a key turning point in the entire case. Analyzing the incredible level of preparation, the unimpeded access to the airport's secure communication systems, and the presence of high-tech life support containers, federal investigators realized the horrific truth. This operation was far too sophisticated, far too expensive, and logistically too complex for a mere isolated kidnapping. It was a smoothly running, well-oiled conveyor belt for transporting live cargo, honed over many years. And when agents prepared a warrant to raid the Black Hawk Freight Facility premises, a single surname emerged in the land title records, one that compelled the director of the Bureau to immediately elevate the status of this case to that of a national threat to the security of the United States of America. Meanwhile, in a heavily guarded wing of the clinic at Goethe University in Frankfurt, Katie Payne's body was slowly but inexorably ridding itself of heavy chemical toxins. As of November 27, 2023, the level of synthetic antipsychotics in her blood had dropped to a point that allowed doctors to officially authorize full-scale interrogations. The intensive care unit had been transformed into a temporary operations center. 2 armed federal police officers stood guard at the door around the clock, while inside, special agents worked, recording every word on digital voice recorders. During hours-long conversations with investigators, Katie sat on her hospital bed, wrapped in a thick blanket. According to the interrogation transcripts, she was in a state of severe post-traumatic stress. Her voice often broke, and her fingers nervously and incessantly rubbed her wrists, where deep crimson marks from the stiff leather straps of the canvas straitjacket still remained on her skin. Her memory, erased by massive doses of muscle relaxants, returned in fragments, but each such fragment became invaluable evidence for the investigation. According to the victim, the reconstruction of the moment of the attack seemed frighteningly mundane. She recalled the sharp, uncharacteristic smell of cheap industrial antiseptic, uncommon in American airports, in the third stall of the restroom. Katie told the investigators about the barely perceptible rustling behind her, the sudden, swift movement, and the icy needle of the syringe that forcefully pierced the muscles of her neck. The last thing her fading mind registered before plunging into a chemical abyss was the utterly indifferent, emotionless face of a woman dressed in a standard cleaning uniform, watching as the victim's body slumped onto the tiled floor. However, the most horrifying passages in the interrogation transcripts were her recollections of the drug's half-life periods. Katie's body, with its naturally high metabolism, would sometimes begin to fight off the tranquilizers. During these brief intervals, she would regain consciousness while trapped deep inside a locked metal container. According to her testimony, this state was identical to being buried alive. She would wake up in pitch darkness with no sense of spatial orientation. The only thing she could feel was a low-frequency vibration of powerful engines, likely from a truck or an airplane, and the piercing cold of the metal floor beneath a thin layer of insulation. Katie described in detail the animal panic that gripped her consciousness every time she realized she could not move a single limb. The thick fabric of the straitjacket tightly constricted her chest, preventing her from taking a deep breath. The straps tightened across her back and legs, preventing her from raising her arm even a few inches to tear off the blindfold. Every movement caused only suffocation and a sharp pain from the friction of the canvas. In the darkness, her hearing was heightened to the maximum. She could hear the quiet, mechanical clicking of the automatic IV drip attached above her head. That clicking meant that in a few seconds, the pump would inject another dose of the sedative. Katie waited in horror for that sound, knowing it would send her back into a bottomless chemical coma. This chilling testimony proved to be invaluable technical data. The Bureau's engineers studied every detail she described. Thanks to her descriptions of the tube's placement, the direction of the pump's sound, and the dimensions of the space inside the box, investigators created an accurate three-dimensional computer model of the syndicate's specialized containers. They calculated the dimensions of the hidden cavities and the acoustic profile of the life support systems. Once these specific parameters were obtained, Interpol's technical department immediately distributed updated scanner configuration protocols to all customs agencies. However, The most crucial lead came from the embossed triangular logo on the pump's plastic casing, which Katie was able to feel with her bound fingers and describe in detail. After running this detail through federal patent and industrial procurement databases, analysts obtained the exact address of the logistics hub where these portable medical systems were being delivered in large quantities. At 8:15 p.m., the senior agent in the office received an urgent message. He slowly lowered his phone and ordered all available federal police units to immediately prepare body armor and assault weapons. They had finally learned the exact coordinates of an unremarkable warehouse in Illinois, where, at that very moment, new, still living people were being prepared for shipment. On December 3, 2023, at 2:15 a.m., an unprecedented order was issued at the Federal Bureau of Investigation headquarters. A joint task force comprising senior FBI agents, Interpol representatives, and elite special operations units launched a large-scale operation. According to declassified protocols, the command center carried out simultaneous strikes on 13 identified logistics centers belonging to the syndicate across 5 countries. The main target was that very same inconspicuous sorting facility on the outskirts of Chicago, the Black Hawk Freight Facility, which had appeared for years in the group's falsified customs declarations as Viridian Logistics Warehouse. In accordance with the tactical plan for the raid, at exactly 4 a.m., massive armored vehicles rammed through the metal gates of the warehouse complex at full speed. From the outside, the area looked like an unremarkable, rusty industrial zone. But the interior was completely different. As the assault team commander noted in his report, the operatives discovered a high-tech transshipment facility equipped with state-of-the-art safety and climate control systems. At 4:22 a.m., the clearance team descended to the underground level. Behind the heavy steel doors lay a veritable medical wing. A detailed description notes the presence of 4 isolated sterile rooms equipped with professional operating tables and monitors. Along the walls stood climate-controlled cabinets, completely filled with vials of tranquilizers, sedatives, and ampules of muscle relaxants. On the shelves lay neatly stacked piles of new canvas straitjackets. It was here that people were methodically pumped full of drugs, restrained, and prepared for transport, packed into ventilated containers like inanimate cargo. The syndicate had no intention of surrendering without a fight. At 4:29 a.m., a fierce firefight broke out in the east wing of the basement. According to audio recordings, security guards armed with automatic weapons opened heavy fire. Their goal was to delay the special forces long enough to destroy the servers containing delivery routes and schedules. But the agents acted with lightning speed. At 4:35 a.m., the assault team broke through the barricade and seized the server room mere seconds before the thermal destruction system was set to activate. The computer storage devices containing priceless information were saved. The main target of the operation, Elias Vance himself, was not found in the central facilities. Analysis of surveillance footage showed that at 4:02, Vance had left the facility via a concealed underground tunnel. This passage led straight to a private airfield located exactly 3 miles from the warehouse. At 4:48 a.m., the pilot of a patrol helicopter reported over the radio that he could see a black SUV with its headlights off, speeding away down the access road. Radar readings showed that the fugitive was traveling at a speed of over 90 miles per hour. The chase unfolded on a deserted pre-dawn highway. At the 25th mile of the highway, federal agents deployed spike strips, blocking the roadway with massive police armored vehicles. At 5:12 a.m., the SUV crashed into the barrier. The tires burst into pieces. The heavy vehicle lost control, spun out on the wet asphalt, and slammed head-on into a concrete guardrail. According to investigators, Vance was disoriented after the crash. The architect of one of the most ruthless shadow empires of our time was roughly pulled from the mangled vehicle. At 5:15 a.m., steel handcuffs clicked shut around his wrists. He lay face down on the cold, wet asphalt, surrounded by dozens of armed federal agents. The cartel's physical existence was over. But the real blow was yet to come for the detectives. At 6:40 a.m., when the Bureau's technical division broke through the security on the seized servers and opened the main transit registry, the senior analyst turned pale. A list of shipments appeared on the monitor. 84 entries were marked delivered, but at the end of the table, a red "in transit" indicator glowed next to 4 unnamed codes whose containers, filled with living people, were crossing borders at that very moment, and the oxygen supply timers on their life support systems were inexorably counting down their final hours. Before the heavy machinery of justice could begin its inevitable work, the task force had to win the most crucial battle, against time. On December 3, 2023, at 7:15 a.m., thanks to decrypted syndicate servers, the Interpol Coordination Center transmitted the exact coordinates of the last 4 containers still in transit. According to declassified rescue operation reports, 2 metal crates were urgently seized at the unloading terminal in the port of Rotterdam at 8:30 a.m. local time. 2 more shipments were removed from a commercial flight that made an emergency landing at Halifax Airport. Thanks to the coordinated efforts of the federal police, the people were rescued alive from their portable prisons exactly 2 hours before the medical oxygen supplies in the cylinders were completely depleted. Only then were federal agents able to officially confirm that the circulatory system of this shadowy logistics empire had come to a permanent halt. On April 15, 2024, at 9 a.m., a high-profile trial against Elias Vance and more than 30 of his key accomplices began in the main courtroom of the U.S. District Court in Chicago. This trial captured the attention of all the world's leading media outlets, as it was set to legally unravel the anatomy of the most sophisticated kidnapping of the past decade. The massive courthouse was surrounded by a triple ring of heightened security. Entry to courtroom 414 was permitted only after passing through 2 metal detector gates, a personal search, and a biometric scan. At 10:15 a.m., the lead prosecutor began his opening statement. Drawing on thousands of pages of seized logistics routes, financial reports, and electronic access logs, he methodically, and in the greatest possible detail, revealed to the 12 jurors a scheme that was horrific, yet ingenious in its chilling realism. The prosecutor emphasized that the myth of a woman's mysterious, almost mystical disappearance from a locked room at the airport must be completely and irrevocably dispelled by the facts. He stressed that there was no mysticism, no paranormal phenomena whatsoever. In their place were only cold, mathematical calculation, flawless transportation logistics, forged documents, and potent chemical medications. On May 11, 2024, during the 20th court session, the prosecutor presented the prosecution's key piece of evidence. He carefully removed from a sealed plastic bag the very same canvas straitjacket in which customs officials had found Katie Payne. According to the court transcript, he explained step by step to the jury exactly how the criminals used this highly specialized medical equipment and long-acting tranquilizers instead of outdated steel chains and gags. This innovative but deeply sadistic approach made it possible to turn living, thinking people into completely obedient, immobile cargo. The bound victims lay for weeks in the complete darkness of ventilated metal containers, crossing national borders and oceans right under the noses of customs officials who trusted the forged shipping documents. On May 18th at 2 p.m. sharp, Katie Payne was called to the stand as the prosecution's key witness. By that time, she had undergone an exceptionally long and grueling course of psychological and physical rehabilitation at a secure medical facility. She stood upright before the court, dressed in a simple, dark business suit, Her voice, as noted by numerous court reporters, sounded steady, clear, and exceptionally confident. Her testimony about the 6 months that had literally been erased from her life in a drug-induced nightmare became the climax of the entire trial. She described in detail the absolute, suffocating darkness of the crate, the constant vibration of the transport, the persistent smell of medical bleach, and the panic-inducing inability to move even a single finger due to the tight leather straps. Her harrowing words, recorded by the court clerks, left the jurors in no doubt as to the inhuman cruelty of all the defendants. After 3 weeks of continuous consideration of all the evidence, on June 7, 2024, at 3:30 p.m., the jury announced its final verdict. Elias Vance was found fully guilty on all 70 counts of the federal indictment. At 5 p.m., the judge read the verdict, sentencing the mastermind of the shadows to the maximum penalty: life imprisonment in a maximum security federal prison without any possibility of parole. In addition, the court ordered the full forfeiture of all identified financial assets, hidden accounts, and real estate totaling over $300 million. At 6:15 p.m. that same day, Katie Payne left the courtroom under heavy escort by her relatives, attorneys, and police officers. The evening sun brightly illuminated the granite steps in front of the massive building. The woman knew that the deep, hideous physical scars from the stiff leather straps on her wrists would remain with her forever, a reminder of the hell she had endured. But she also knew for certain that her unbreakable ability to survive in the darkness and retain her sharp mind had allowed justice to completely dismantle one of the most sophisticated and brutal criminal empires of the past decade. It seemed that justice had been fully restored, the criminals had gotten what they deserved, and this terrible case was finally closed. Katie took a deep breath of fresh air and sat down in the back seat of the armored government SUV that was to take her to her new, safe home. The vehicle pulled away, rapidly picking up speed. However, just as the car had traveled exactly 3 miles from the courthouse and turned onto the highway, a single text message from a hidden number arrived on her new, highly secure cell phone. A number known exclusively to senior agents of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. It contained only a few words, which instantly made her blood run cold. "We know where you are. Cargo number 815 is waiting to be shipped."